Next step, I want to be able to bring up Trish Galen from the city of Tucson. One of the exciting things that the city has committed to is to have Trish be an ombudsperson. She is going to be the person to be able to be kind of your main point of contact as you move forward. Get to know her really well. She's got a lot of experience with the city, great personality to kind of be helpful and allow you to help maneuver through this process. So Trish is going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that may be available to how we can go forward.
Thanks, Phil. I'm Patricia, and I've been with the city for about 20 years. And just a little bit about my background, I did zoning, all aspects of zoning, for about 10 years, and now I'm the project manager for planning and development services, and I basically help projects get through the system. So probably why I was picked to be the ombudsperson. So a couple of things I just want to say before I start, because I'll probably slip into some acronyms. So planning and development services, primarily where you will go for questions and assistance throughout this, I'll probably refer to as PDSD. And the zoning code is the Unified Development Code, which I'll probably refer to as the UDC. So just wanted to let you know that. There's a difference between property owners versus tenants. All of the revitalization options and tools that I'll be talking about today run with the land. That does not mean that tenants don't have a role to play in those processes, because they're often the people that initiate the process with the property owner to help them succeed with their business. I also want to acknowledge that there's a difference between code compliance and the needs of a business. So primarily what we'll be talking about are minimum code compliance issues, but that doesn't mean that that works for the business. So we acknowledge that there's a difference there. There's also a difference between a non-conforming site and a non-conforming use. And primarily, you guys along Broadway would have non-conforming sites, either already because the properties along Broadway have been developed under different codes many years ago, or the taking potentially could cause some non-conforming. It's not a huge big thing, and it's much better than being a non-conforming use. So I just want to kind of clarify those issues. As I go through these items, they are ordered from simplest to more complex. So we'll go through them in that order. The first one is there's no taking to your site. And that's probably the best case scenario. There's no taking, you just continue to operate as is. You need nothing from us. The next set of steps are administrative. And by administrative, I mean that the decisions are made by city staff. They're made by city staff. There may be public notification, but it is an internal decision by the director. So the first one is the as-is or cryogenic ordinance. This has been on the books for about 3 years, and it was adopted specifically to help older properties that are non-conforming continue to operate changes of use without having to bring the entire site up to code. This will work for properties that have some taking off of the front of their property, as long as the property remains safe. So as long as all the vehicle movements and all those kind of fire, trash pickup are safe, you'll be able to continue operating. Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to use any of the public right-of-way. So it has to be safe and on private property. This option is cannot be used for residentially zoned property, which we do have some residentially zoned properties on the western side of Broadway, and it cannot be used for standalone restaurants and bars. So those are the few issues that it can't be used for. We primarily use the aerials from 2005 to see whether your site looks the same. There were no building additions, things like that. If that's the case, you can use this one, and it's relatively easy to use. In fact, it pretty much happens pretty quickly. The next one is the development package, and this is just the standard process anyone goes through for new development, building addition, redesign, and it's generally done by architects and engineers. The development design option is used for reducing building setbacks. So if you want to do an addition and your property's smaller and you want to get closer to one of your property lines, this is an administrative process that allows you to do that. Unfortunately, it can't be used for your setback to Broadway because it's a major street and route. It can also be used to raise patio wall heights and move some of your landscaping around a little bit if you can't completely comply with all the landscaping requirements. The next one is the individual parking plan, also very new to our code and was put in here to encourage people to ask for code exception to parking without having to go through a public process. We've done about 12 of them throughout the city. It's relatively easy. It's based on basically justification of what your business needs. So if the code says you need more parking than you feel you need, or if you're on a side street and can use some off-site parking, things like that, it's an administrative process that allows you to do that. If you want to do some shared parking, that would be an off-site shared parking. If you find a parcel that's a group of you can buy, so you have some extra parking, that will work for that. Again, this one can't be used for restaurants and bars. So you kind of see a trend here with the really intense uses that can impact neighborhoods. The administrative processes aren't as available as retail and office uses, which generate less traffic. Finally, there's lot combinations and replats. These are just processes that allow you to combine properties and build over lot lines if you buy your neighbor's property and things like that. Or if a group of you want to get together and cut up property differently, you can do a replat. These are standard kind of administrative processes. So on to the public processes. These are a little bit more intense, I want to say. The decisions of these are not made by staff. They're made by a body, a standalone body. It could either be the Board of Adjustment or, in a lot of cases, it's the mayor and council. Property owners within 300 feet, neighborhood associations within a mile, and the ward offices are the contact or the notification range for these processes. The first one is the Board of Adjustment variance, and the decision is made by the Board of Adjustment. This is a state-required board. So things like alley access will have to go through the Board of Adjustment because it currently is not allowed by code. Things, if you want to get rid of your loading zone, some of those kind of things, you'd have to go to the Board of Adjustment for that. The next one is rezoning. This one is used primarily for a single property owner, someone who, let's say one of the R2 property owners would like to redevelop it commercially. You would have to rezone your property to a commercial zone. Then you would come in and do your development package and demonstrate compliance. In addition with this, there's probably going to be rezoning conditions that are set by your neighbors, other community members, other government agencies, and standard rezoning conditions. The next one is the planned area development, which is a bigger rezoning, usually involves more property. You have one at Broadway Village. They are a planned area development, and the benefit of a planned area development is that you can write your own code. So you get to take a look at all of the things that you would have to comply with and get rid of those and do something that fits your needs more. The last one there is the overlay district. These are relatively new. The most current one we have is the main gate overlay. I don't know if you see where all the large student housing towers are going in west of the university. That needs to be initiated by mayor and council, and that would be for the whole Broadway corridor. And again, it would be a rewriting of the code to fit what everybody in the corridor would need, such as alley access. So if it were written into the overlay, individual property owners wouldn't go to get a variance because it would be allowed in the district. So, and a couple of other ones, shared agreements. You can talk to your neighbors and see about sharing excess parking, maybe sharing dumpsters. I do caution that these also generally need some consent from the city. For instance, if you want to share your dumpsters, environmental services would be part of that discussion to make sure that the proper paperwork, and so that it would continue down the road, you know, that kind of thing. A condominium plat is an option for another plat where you just sell airspace. So a group of people can own land jointly, but then sell their individual building areas. A little less expensive. I think with that, I'm going to pass it back to Phil. I will be around if people have questions.
Thanks, Trish. You know, the condominium is sort of one of those options. It's certainly been done. It's a fairly common thing with developers to create ways that individual businesses can actually invest and share in development costs. It's becoming sort of a new trend of what we're seeing, even potentially with retail or others. So again, you've got some developers along here that if you decide that maybe you need to be able to sell your property, but you want to stay, maybe there's groups of you that might decide you want to get together and work with a developer or an architect along here to be able to sort of combine some properties and have a shared business area together. You can share parking and a variety of things like that. A parking improvement district, again, that's one of those sort of out-of-the-box ideas that could potentially happen here if that's what you guys decide you'd like to be able to do. I mean, that's where you say, you know what, I own a flower shop and I don't have the time and wherewithal to go ahead and buy property and develop a new parking lot. If you guys have a group or a collection along a block or two that decide we'd rather pay the city to be able to do that, they'd add it to your taxes and they could actually develop a parking lot as a possibility. Again, that's something we'd have to convince the city and mayor and council to be able to do. But again, if that's a solution that you guys like, we want to hear and see if that's something that might be a possibility. They would maintain it and that sort of thing. Public parking lots, a version of the improvement district. It's not currently in the city budget for the city to come in and build public parking lots, but it's been talked about as a possibility. You could have parking rides or have larger. You could even build a parking structure or other things that might supply areas for the district here or for your blocks. Again, so. These are just a variety of tools. We realize we need to be innovative here. I mean, this is a unique area of town. It's older. Again, we want to, and it's nice that the city is saying we're open. I mean, it's none of these are absolute givens, but again, we want to see what can we do to think out of the box in some new ways here to find ways to be able to develop. And I think a couple of other things that just to be able to bring up that the Citizens Task Force has the chance to be able to help initiate. One of the possibilities is there's some spots along here where some minor side streets might be able to be closed, and you could put public parking and create more parking on those little sort of cul-de-sacs or areas. Again, it's a possibility. And when we're in breakout groups, if you like that idea, let us know, let the task force know. That's something that they could recommend as part of this alignment process. And then the last one we have, and I don't know if we've got any examples on the western half of Broadway here, but I know we've got a couple areas on the eastern half, what we call a buffered access lane on Broadway, where actually within the right-of-way, it's sort of a side street out of the main 6-lane road that would have access to parallel or perpendicular parking in front of your shops. The potential benefit of that is that it's in the right-of-way. So we would have to get approval to go ahead and utilize that parking in the right-of-way. But if you've got a whole strip of property owners, you don't have to be able to have every one of the property owners. If it's on private property, you would have to have shared access agreements across the front of everybody's property, and that might be more complicated. Maybe not, and maybe that's a great solution as well. So again, we've got a variety of options here and tools. Our goal is to be able to hear from you about what things might pique your interest, where can you go with here, and because there may be some others too that would come up as we get